What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about the difference in weight of raw meats versus cooked meats, dry pasta versus wet cooked pasta. What's the opposite of that? Ma'am. Cooked. Uncooked pasta versus cooked pasta rice. You get the idea. There are some foods that you will log in MyFitnessPal or whatever you're choosing to log your foods that are gonna have discrepancies between the cooked weight and the uncooked weight. And I have mentioned this in a few videos before, I think about like entering recipes into MyFitnessPal and how to account for that. There's also another video that I made kind of recently. It is about the 10 most common tracking mistakes that people do when they are entering things, and this is one of them. So I wanted to kind of go a little bit more in detail about this and how to make sure that you're doing it correctly. So I have a pot of water boiling on the stove because I want to show you the actual difference in volume and the difference in calories or macros, whatever it is that you're tracking. So I'm just using a regular wheat protein pasta. It really doesn't matter because there are three main things that will change in weight when they are uncooked versus cooked. So first, obviously pasta. When you're cooking it, the amount of pasta that you're visually seeing on your bowl or whatever you're logging is going to be much smaller before it's cooked than when it is when you are done and it's filled with water. And same goes for rice. And it's typically about double. So if you look at the nutrition label for this box of pasta, and like I said, it's pretty much all the same, one serving is 2 ounces or 56 grams. So I'm gonna pour 56 grams into a bowl so you can see what that looks like dry or uncooked. So this is what the bowl looks like with one serving. Now, typically with pasta and rice, it's just about double. So we're gonna see what it actually ends up weighing at the end when we've cooked just one serving. Now the reason why this is important is because if you're out somewhere, or let's just say you don't have the uncooked version to actually see what the serving size is, you can use that rough estimate of doubling. And if you were to weigh cooked pasta without knowing actually what the serving is that you're having, in this case, like I said, most pasta is typically 2 ounces per serving, so, or 56 grams. So if you took cooked pasta and weighed out about 112 to 115 grams of cooked pasta, you would know that you're eating one serving. Now the same goes for rice. It's roughly doubled, but there are some exceptions. Like for example, this is the Trader Joe's frozen pre-cooked rice. So I don't have the box to show you, but on that box, the nutrition label will just say that the serving size is 143 grams, which is obviously as the rice is. It's important to note that pretty much all nutrition labels, with the exception of ones that are like homemade nutrition labels or some outliers, but for the most part, all nutrition labels will state the nutritional information for the product as is. So in this example with the pasta, even though it doesn't say 56 grams dry, some will, but not all. It's just a general rule of thumb that the nutrition label is stating these things for how the product is as you're seeing it in the box. For chicken thighs that are coming right out of the package, which we're gonna talk about next, that is for the chicken raw. Pretty much all the nutrition labels that you will see on raw meats, especially just like in the grocery store, the produce section, whatever, it's all going to be as is. It's up to you to either do that conversion, like I was just sharing with you about the doubling of pasta or the doubling of rice, but with meat, there is a slightly different conversion. Hopefully this is making sense so far, but when it comes to meats, normally the rough estimation or general estimation is that the actual volume of the meat will shrink roughly 25%. Now this is not in all cases because it's also going to depend on like steak, for example. If you're undercooking it or overcooking it, it's going to shrink even more. In my experience, the way that I cook fish, it's usually only about like 10 to 20%. But when it comes just to like chicken, for example, I'm gonna grab the chicken thigh package out of the fridge. Like I was saying before, this nutrition label is for the chicken thighs as is. And oh, this one actually says, that's really nice. Normally they don't. This one says 112 grams raw. So what this means is that when you are taking a piece of chicken from your raw package, a 4 ounce serving is going to be about 112 grams because it's going to shrink about 25%. In order to find 25% of 112, you just multiply by 0.25, which is about 28 grams. So in this scenario, Obviously, it's going to change if you're having a bigger serving of meat, but just for this one specific serving, if you do 112 minus 28, which is 25%, it's going to be 84 grams. So all that means is the initial weight of the meat raw for 4 ounces was 112 grams uncooked. When you cook it, it then shrinks to 84 grams. The nutritional content of that is still the same. You don't need to change anything. However, when you are entering it into MyFitnessPal, it's important that you're doing it consistently. So a lot of times what I see people will do unintentionally is they'll weigh out 4 ounces of cooked chicken, but then because the nutrition label is labeled as chicken raw, they'll enter 4 ounces of chicken into their MyFitnessPal, but then they're actually consuming 4 ounces cooked, which is about almost 5 ounces raw. So in order to kind of do the reverse, if let's say you only have cooked chicken, right, and you wanted to figure out how much that you are logging raw, what you would do, let's just use a random example and say that you're gonna eat 150 grams of cooked chicken. In order to find out how much that would have been raw, if you are somebody that wants to always consistently weigh it raw, you would just figure out what 25% of that is. So 150 times 0.25, which is 37.5 grams, give or take. It doesn't need to be this intense, but I just wanted to make this as detailed as possible so that anyone who really wants to understand how to track it can do so. So obviously a little bit different than the 4 ounce portion, but you would just add that back into the 150 gram that you're weighing out, and it's actually 187 grams that you technically were consuming if you are logging it raw. This might sound really confusing, but the best way that I can tell you to do it to keep it consistent is to weigh your chicken cooked, if that's what you're gonna do, and then also log it cooked. You can search in MyFitnessPal cooked chicken breast grams USDA or cooked chicken thigh grams, whatever it is. And some of those entries that other people have already done will have had that conversion already applied. So for example, the 187 grams that I was just talking about, even though that's technically what the chicken was raw, they will use those same nutrition facts and convert it to the 150 gram cooked amount. I hope that makes sense. It sounds really confusing when I'm saying it, but when you do it, you'll understand. With that being said, just remember that whatever you're doing, if you're choosing to weigh it cooked because you either don't have the raw meats available, you don't know, whatever it is, then search in MyFitnessPal or whatever you're using the cooked amount so that you don't always have to use your calculator and figure out the 25% and all that stuff. It gets overwhelming, and in my experience, just from having tracked macros for so long, I think it's best just to search cooked grams in MyFitnessPal already. As a side note, there are going to be some entries in MyFitnessPal that are incorrect because we are humans and we mess things up sometimes, and I have seen some of those entries be incorrect. So that's the reason why it's important to know the difference and make sure that you're sticking with whatever way you're choosing to log and weigh your meats or pastas. With the pasta, I'm gonna show you what that ended up looking like. Put it back on the scale just to show you the difference. It turned out to be 109 grams. Now, if you remember, I poured in 56 grams, which just about double. A little bit less, but again, a couple grams isn't a big deal. So if you were somebody who is looking to log or weigh only the cooked pasta, in order to log one serving size of the box, which is 56 grams, it turns out to be 109 grams. So I just personally like to know that off the top of my head so that whenever I am having only cooked pasta available to me, I don't have to worry about like how many servings it is because I can just do the simple math. I hope that that makes sense. I hope it answered your questions. If you have any other ones, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to give this video a like, hit that subscribe button, you already know, and I will see you on Monday.